the process of developing a test occurs in 5 stages, right? So there will be 5 stages when we want to develop a test. Okay. And let's see if I can move on to the next slide. So it is first the test conceptualization, then the test construction. Then the third one is test tryout and item analysis, right? So do you know what are the items? What do we call as items here? We'll discuss that once we discuss the item analysis. Then 5th will be the test revision. Okay, so the first step, which is the test conceptualization, will be the first step. What it says that choosing a suitable topic and method of testing, then review of the available literature on existing test, emerging social phenomena or pattern of behavior might serve as a stimulus for the development of a new test, right? So again, while we conceptualize the test, right? So see, all these tests emerges from a requirement, a need, right? So there will be a need. That is reason why we created, let's say, the aptitude test, different kinds of aptitude test. The requirement must be there, right? So then it led to the generation or development of a new test. So that's how like different tests are developed as per the requirement, as per the need of the society. Okay, moving on to the next one is, right, so what are questions can be there? So the first is, what is the test designed to measure? So the test is designed to measure, whether it's measuring, right, the personality, the intelligence, right, and the aptitude, all of those, the compassion, self-compassion, or there can be so many tests. What is the objective of the test? So at the end of the test, what do you want to achieve from this test? Okay, is there a need for this test? Right, so not just have a test just for the sake of it, right? So the requirement must be there. Who will use this test? Yes, it's there. Okay, then who is going to use this test? Right, so if we know that who is going to use, right, so while we do that practically, we do the research, then we'll be able to, right, be in a better mindset, and the questions we definitely will be there. So who will use the test? The test user, who is going to use all these tests, and who will take this test. Okay, so the test user is going to use this test on, like, who all? Like for the HR is going to be the test user, and on the employees, on the candidates. So what content will the test cover? What all do we want to cover in this? And how will the test be administered? So how are we going to administer it, right? So yes, and then what is the ideal format? So format will be how it will flow, the different items and all that will be there. Should more than one form of the test be developed? So do we want more than one or only one form, right? So one that will be sufficient. What special training will be required of the test users for administering or interpreting the test? So if there is any special training that will be required, right, for all those test users, that will also be kept in mind. So what types of responses will be required of test takers? Do we want, right, the agree, disagree, or objective, subjective? Like what kind of responses do we want is required? So who benefits from an administration of this test? Is there any potential for harm as a result of an administration of this test? Right, so is it going to cause any harm? How will meaning be attributed to the scores of this test? So these are a few questions which can be asked, right, while we start the process. the test makers start the process, right? Then there will be this pilot work. So initially, right, there will be too many questions. So if any test has, say, 15 questions as of now, right? So initially, there will be many. So the pilot work will start. The preliminary research surrounding the creation of a prototype of the test, right? So based on the questions which we just read, right? So based on all those, a prototype will be prepared, okay, of the test will be prepared. So test items may be studied to evaluate whether they should be included in the final form of the instrument. So all the different items which are there, right? So again, will be evaluated individually, whether it's relevant, whether we should have it in the final, right, the form. The test developer typically attempts to determine how best to measure a targeted construct. So that measurement, right, that again, that needs to be checked in the pilot work. So once pilot work has been completed, right, so we have, based on all the questions, prepare that prototype, have gone through all the different items, right, of the prototype, right, and how we are measuring, right? So we have prepared that format, the prototype, and different items are there. We have checked that also once, twice, right, many times. And then how are we measuring it? That also we have gone through, checked that how are we like measuring the result at the end. And so once it's complete, then comes the process of test construction. So the test construction, we are going to construct it. So the process of setting rules for assigning numbers in the measurement. Okay, that will be scaling 1 to 5, like that. So different tests again will have a different scaling method. So LL Thurstone is credited for being at the forefront of efforts to develop methodologically sound scaling methods, right? So that scaling again is very important, because we have prepared the test, but if we are not able to, right, assign numbers or do that scaling properly, the whole purpose will be wasted. There can be different scaling methods, right? So one can be the rating scale, where we are giving the ratings, okay? The ratings that the test taker makes for each of the 30 test items are added together to obtain a final score, right? So the rating for each, like if there are 30 items, you understand the items, what exactly are items? See the questions or the statements which will be there, they'll be known as the items, which are, right? So each item will measure something, right? So let's say there are 30 items, 30 statements, 30 questions are there. So the score of each item, right, will be added, and a final score will be obtained. So because the final test score is obtained by summing the ratings across all the items, it is termed as a summative scale, right? So the rating scale is known as summative because we are doing that sum, right? Adding it. Then there is this Likert scale, right? So it's extensively used in psychology and usually to scale attitudes. So Likert scales are relatively easy to construct. So here, mainly we'll see this kind of a scale. So each item presents the test taker with 5 alternative response. They can be 7 as well sometimes. So usually you'll see this, right, more mainly the Likert, right? So Likert scale will be more like agree, disagree, approve, disapprove, right? Like that. So there will be, right? This will be used more, but they can be ratings as well. Then, so this is one example, like this is 1 item, 2 item, 3 item, right? So we have to do that. Summative scaling will be there. Okay. 5 and this 8 is 13. So that's why it's called as summative scaling. And this is the ranking scale. Then there is paired comparison as well, right? So few scales will have paired comparison, which means test takers are presented with pairs of stimuli. Like 2 photographs can be there, 2 objects can be there, 2 statements can be there. So which they are asked to compare, right? This or this. So you have to choose one. And as we go through different kinds of tests, we'll see that, see, again, different tests will be using different scaling methods, right? So they must select one of the stimuli according to some rule. For example, the rule that they agree more with one statement than the other, or the rule that they find one stimulus more appealing than the other. Like the statement, select the behavior that you think would be more justified. See, again, there is no right or wrong in this, right? Cheating on taxes if one has a chance, or accepting a bribe in the course of one's duty, right? So again, it will be different as per individuals. So here, what it's doing, it's actually comparing both these options. So in this method, right, paired comparison. Now, the next one is comparative scaling. So entails judgment of a stimulus in comparison with every other stimulus on the scale. Like test takers would be asked to sort the cards from most justifiable to least, right? So there will be more, right, items which you have to compare. So comparative scaling could also be accomplished by providing test takers with a list of 30 items on a sheet of paper and asking them to rank, right, the justifiability of the items, right? So when we do that motivation, fine, motivation test, there, this comparative scaling is used, right? So there is a list, fine, of different motivators, which you need to rank, okay, according to you, fine. So different ranking needs to be given, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So whichever you think is number 1 motivator as per you, so you'll rank it as 1, right? So accordingly, different items will have different ranking. So what here we are doing, we are comparing, right? So, and it will be known as the comparative scaling, right? So as it's, and somewhat like this sentence is a kind of comparison, right? Here there will be pair, there will be pair. That's why paired comparison. And here there will be, the items will be more in number in the comparative scaling, right? So it can be any number depending upon that test, and comparative scaling can be there. And then comes the categorical scaling. So again, stimuli are placed into one of 2 or more alternative categories that differ quantitatively with respect to some quantum, right? Quantum. Test taker would be asked to sort the cards into 3 pillars: those behavior that are never justified, those that are sometimes justified, and those that are always justified. So what's happening? We have 3 categories here, right? Sometimes, always, and never, right? So we got these 3 categories, and then there will be certain behaviors, right? The list of behaviors will be there, and you have to write as per the individual where they want to, right, put that behavior. Okay, and then as what we are doing, we are categorizing. Fine, we are categorizing those behaviors. So that is why it's known as the categorical scaling, where we are doing the categories, where we are doing or segregating it in the categories, right? So categorical scaling, right? So the next step So we finalize the scaling method, right? So we discussed different scaling methods which we can use. And now we have finalized that let's do the Likert scale where there will be agree, disagree, right? So you must have seen that in personality test as well. There will be that scale only, right? So we have finalized the scaling method. Now we are going to write the items. So items are the different statements which will be there, okay, in the format. Different statement, right? So if you have given the personality test, so there will be different statements, right? So each is known as item. Fine. So we'll be now writing the item. So it will be what range of content should the items cover? So what all we need to cover? Fine. So if it's personality, so it will be quite broad. If it's say motivation, right? So it will only take care of all those content which talks about the motivation, right? All those motivation factors only, right? The behavioral aspect or other personal thing or intelligence, that will not be required, right? So we will be, so based on that, based on the type of test, the purpose, the objective, we will see, right, the range of content which the item should cover. Okay, which of the many different items of the item format should be employed, which all should we use? How many items, how many numbers should be written in total and for each content area cover? Okay, so the number also, how many? So every like test will have different number of items. Fine. So how many is also important, and what all will be there is also important. So an item pool is the reservoir or well from which items will or will not be drawn for the final version of the test. So comprehensive sampling for content validity, right? So we need to do a comprehensive sampling. We need to give it to a large pool, right, to get it validated and to check the validity. So approximately half of these items will be eliminated. So it happens that once we, right, do the sampling, then half of it will be, we'll find that this is not much relevant, or this is again not that much significant. It's repeated, right? So all that will be there, and we can eliminate it, all those items which we think is not that relevant, which is not adding value. Multiply the number of items required in the pool for one form of the test by number of forms planned, and you have the total number of items needed for the initial item pool, right? So if there are different categories like 1, and under these there will be different questions, then there is different category, and then again different question. So if you have checked for this, that for this 10 questions seems perfect, so that's what you did, right? For every other categories you are using 10 items. Okay, so that's what the test developer may write a large number of items from personal experience and academic acquaintance with the subject matter. So yes, initially there will be a large number of items. Fine. All those statements which we see in the final version, right? Initially, there will be a lot, twice or thrice of what we see. So consideration related to variables such as the purpose of the test and the number of examinees to be tested at one time enter into decisions regarding the format of the test under construction. And so all that also needs to be considered, that who all will be the examinee and how the decision we are going to take. Then comes the format. So format is how it will look, right? And how we are going to plan the structure. The layout of each test will be called as the item format, right? So it will have variables such as form, plan, structure, arrangement, layout, right? So every question will, every test will look differently, right? And will, so while we go through different tests, we'll see that every test will have a different kind of format, fine, which is more relevant to that particular test. So all these, the form type, which we are going to use, right? So there will be, say, 4 pages for this, the plan, the mixed questions will be there, right? Then the structure, the arrangement. So everything will be in the item format. So items presented in a selected response format require test taker to select a response from a set of alternative responses. So in case there is like, there are different like response which you need to select like this. Okay, if let's say there are 5, so you have to select. So there is one item. Okay, and now you have to select from these items. So you're doing it online, you will be clicking here. Okay, or anywhere. So this way you are selecting from a set of alternative responses. These are the different responses and you are selecting the best like as per you. So items presented in a constructed response format require test takers to supply or to create the correct answer, not merely to select it. Fine. And see, again, if it's a personality test, then there will be no correct or incorrect answer. Fine. But if we talk about the aptitude test, so there will be incorrect answers as well, right? So correct answer will be there. So according to that, right, if it's a aptitude test where there will be right and wrong, then it must be prepared accordingly, right? So he has to give that this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. So an item written in a multiple choice format has 3 elements, right? So usually you will see that there will be there can be multiple choice as well. So a stem, a correct alternative or option, they can be, and the third will be several incorrect alternatives or options, variously referred to as distractor of foils. Now, what it's saying multiple choice. So there are many options, 1, 2, 3, like, okay, 4, you have to choose one. So 1 will be correct option. Let's say 3 is the correct one. Okay, and then there will be some distractors or some, right, just like it will be there, someone will be similar to the right one. So in a matching item, the test taker is presented with 2 columns, premises on the left and responses on the, so there will be right left, 2 columns will be there, and then the questions will be on the left and answers will be on the right, responses will be on the right. So a multiple choice item that contains only 2 possible responses called a binary choice item. So from the name we can find binary means 2. So when you have only 2 options, yes or no kind, okay, so then it will be known as binary choice item. So a completion item requires the examinee to provide a word or phrase that completes a sentence. So there will be a completion item as well, right? So where there will be a sentence and then you have to give a word as per you to complete that particular sentence. So that will be known as completion item, right? Where only 1 word will be required and you'll be typing that. So writing items, right, for computer administration, these programs typically you make use of 2 advantages of digital media, right? So computer, like the test will be done on computer. The ability to store items in an item bank and the ability to individualize testing through a technique called item branching. Okay, so we'll see that. What exactly is branching? So an item bank is a relatively large and easily accessible collection of test questions. Instructor who regularly teach a particular course content sometimes create their own bank of questions that they have found to be useful on examinations, right? So here it will be more related to the knowledge, right? So if you want to check that, the aptitude can also be there, right? So different questions are there. Okay, a large bank, you can say the bank of question, which will be known as the item bank, right? So many questions are there, and again from that bank questions will be there, right? The ability of the computer to tailor the content in order of presentation of test items on the basis of responses to previous item is referred to as the branching. Now, the term computerized adapting testing refers to an interactive computer administered test taking process wherein items presented to the test taker are based in part of test taker's performance on previous items, right? So here what's happening, whatever test he has given, his next test be like further items will be based on that test, that performance only. Now this is one problem with this. There is a flow effect which refers to the diminished utility of an assessment tool for distinguishing test takers at the low end. See, next slide will give us more clarity on the floor effect and the ceiling effect, right? So what exactly is floor effect and what is this ceiling effect? So here the examples are given. So suppose a first grade teacher administers an IQ exam to her students. So first grade, right? That is actually designed for adults. So it's an IQ exam for adults, but they are administrating it on students of first grade. So more than likely, each student will score low, right? Low possible score, simply because the test will be difficult for them. So because of this, it will be difficult for the teacher to rank the scores of the student in any type of order. And she won't be able to get an accurate idea of how spread out the IQ scores truly are for the students, obviously, because the test was not designed for adults, right? So why floor? Because it's getting down, right? So that's why it's known as floor. Now, reverse of this, we can say, suppose a teacher administers an IQ exam that is measured on a scale of 1 to 50. Without realizing it, she makes the exam a bit too easy, right? If such thing happens, then what will happen? Everyone will score or at or near a perfect score of 50. So because of this, it will be difficult for her to rank the scores of the students in any type of order. So what's happening here? Ceiling, right? So the ranks are getting up, the scores are getting up. Why? Because the test was too easy, right? Here, the difficulty level or it was not as per age appropriate, so it's getting down. So that is the floor effect. Ceiling effect, if it's getting high due to a reason like it was too easy, fine. So that will be known as the ceiling effect. It's a ceiling, right? Ceiling is up, so score is getting up. Floor effect, down, so the scores are getting down, right? So that is one. Now, okay, this last one, the scoring the items. Now the last will be how to score. So again, for scoring, there will be different models. So one is the cumulative model. So typically the rule in a cumulative score test is that higher the score on the test, the higher the test taker is on the ability, right? So if a percentage is there or any right score is there, then if you get a good score, a high score on a particular right area item, right? So in that case, it shows that that particular behavior is more in that person, right? So if you'll go through various tests and then it will show some percentages of the different right components which were there in the test. So it will tell you that this, let's say, realistic, right, innovation, if these are there, and if you get more percentage of realistic, then that means that is more, that trait is more in that person. So in the test that employs class or category scoring, right? Category, remember, test taker responses earn credit toward placement in a particular class, right? So there, as we discussed, there were 3, right? And they will be placing it accordingly, right? So if the person place it in the right category, right? So according to that, there will be different scoring, right? With the other test takers whose pattern of responses is presumably similar in some way. So this approach is used by some diagnostic system wherein individual must exhibit a certain number of symptoms to qualify for a specific diagnosis. Now, a typical objective is quantitative scoring is comparing a test taker score on a scale within a test to another scale within that same test. Okay, so this is one, like if you get like this. Okay, so this is as per the Big 5 personality test, which we'll discuss as well. So here, see, if this gets 9, agreeableness get 8, introversion get 7, extroversion 5 and 1. So which means the person has more of, right, conscientiousness. Fine. So this we will be doing later on.